Hello, folks. Today we have with us Gloria Bettini, who has come to share her story with us, and you are listening to the Deal by Me podcast, a podcast where we ask our guests to tell us your story. Story can be so encouraging, inspiring, and very transforming. We are just so thankful for folk who share. And we ask you if you would make a comment, if you are listening or viewing this on YouTube, please leave us a comment or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are grateful, very thrilled to have Bettina come and share with us today. This young lady is an emotional wellness coach who helps women heal from emotional abuse for good and go from breakup to breakthrough. I'm excited today.
Oh,
Bettina, Bettina, tell us uh, where you are located now as we begin our conversation this morning. And I want to, first of all, say to you, thanks for sharing your story. Uh,
thank you.
where are you located as we're talking? And
Thank you. Yes, I'm in England,
um,
across the pond.
across the pond. Oh, it's so good to just talk to somebody across the pond. Good to see. You have an interesting story. Would you just kind of share a little bit with us about you personally? Where you were raised. A little bit of your background, not
Mm.
necessarily your story in terms of what you do, but in terms of you as a person.
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm very excited to be here. So I grew up in Italy. I grew up in the countryside near Milan in Italy. I was raised by a single mom, and I lived with her and also my uncle and my grandparents. So it was like a large family kind of, you know, modern family kind of thing. And my dad lived in Tuscany, another part of Italy, and so yeah, I went to school there and did everything there up until I was 24 years old. And at 24, I decided to move to the UK, and I packed my bags with my ex at the time, with my boyfriend at the time, now my ex, and moved to London. So yeah, so growing up, it's quite difficult. I mean, in my family, there was loads of love and support. All my needs were met and
Mhm.
everything. But there was a lot of bullying going on in school. And so, yeah. And so that wasn't that pleasant. It left a little bit of a wound in there. And then growing up, I realized also some things around the relationship with my mom as well, but things that you realize as you grow up. And yeah, and I realized that a lot of those things that have happened in those early year of my life have led me to um, choose to marry someone with narcissistic traits and stay with them for about 15 years. So
Uh,
yeah.
All right, all right. Well, we're gonna talk about that a little bit because I know you are an emotional wellness coach. So one of the things that I noticed from you and looking a little bit into your bio is that you stayed with this narcissistic person for 14 years. So why why did you stay so long? You didn't pick this up earlier?
No, for a very long time I didn't.
Okay.
So for a very long time, this is exactly what I mean when I say that everything that happens in early childhood had programmed me in such a way to think that certain things and certain behaviors were normal. And so I did not pick it up for a very long time. I picked it up then the moment I went and started a healing journey myself. So I was really struggling with anxiety disorders. I had OCD at the time, and I couldn't function anymore. I had hit literally rock bottom. Like my OCD was literally driving my life. And I decided I can't do it, like I can't carry on like this. I have to seek help. So I went to work with a coach, and it was only when I started that journey and I started getting better and the anxiety started to lower and OCD started to go away, that I had more space in my mind to notice. Right. So I
Okay.
all of a sudden I
Okay.
had, it was almost like an awakening, right? To the truth.
So, did y'all have any children in this marriage?
No, no, no,
No
no.
children. Okay. So it was just 14 years of narcissistic behavior and no children to kind of step in between it and all of this kind of stuff. You just
Mhm.
went through this manipulative marriage for 14 years. Must have
Yeah.
been must have been kind of hard.
It was. The thing is that I was raised with that mentality that said, you have to, two things were really crucial in my belief system. Number one was that you have to accept everyone, no matter, for everything that they are, even if it means that it's hurting you,
Mhm.
right? So you have to just be the martyr substantially, right? You have to accept them. If you love them, you just accept them with all of their traits, even if it hurts you. And the second thing was that sacrifice is normal. Sacrifice is normal, and you can't get anything in life unless you let some of yourself go, some sort of part of yourself go, in order to achieve that. So with those two very things at my core, a lot of the stuff that was happening in my daily life, I perceived as, well, this is just what it is. I have to accept him the way that he is, because this is what you do if you love someone, right? But then obviously working with the coach, I realized that I needed to love myself too.
Well said. I'm very impressed with your story and very impressed with how you have handled it. As you go out and talk with other women, uh,
Mhm.
you in sharing your story, well, what do you get from them? Do you get any kind of what I guess vibration? How do you tell that they are listening to you?
Other women,
Yeah, women.
oh, they tell me.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
tell me very, very plainly. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is actually one of the things that has led me to then change the course of my life and become a coach. Sorry, change the course of my life professionally as well and become a coach, because it was me just telling people what had happened,
Mhm.
and people responding and telling me, oh, I didn't know this was a thing, like really responding and really saying like how many times they had felt the same way, and how
Mhm.
many times, they didn't think that they could do it, but then you have to stay because of this reason, because of that reason. So no, so the response was very vocal. Yeah, yeah. So that made me stop and think, and like, well, hang on a minute. If I'm just having some sort of impact, maybe it's
Mhm.
like minimum, but it's some sort of impact on someone, just by telling them, look, this is what has happened in my life and this is how I
Mhm.
dealt with it. If that has an impact, imagine if I actually trained and became a coach and actually specialized in this. Imagine how much more it could help, right? And that's what made me do it.
Do you uh, do you do this virtually also as opposed to in person? You understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying? If somebody here in the States were interested in you sharing with them, uh, is there a way they can do this virtually with you, like you
Yeah.
sharing with me?
Yeah, 100%. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I work online. I do have things that I do in person as well, but I do work online a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Really, very interesting. You're an amazing guest for me today. I'm really
Thank
excited to have you. Let me ask you this, because you've gone through so much in these 14 years of your marriage and based upon your culture, uh, how can one heal fully from the aftermath of emotional abuse and a narcissistic uh, abuse from individuals, spouse, and perhaps more in line with what you're talking about would be the marriage. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to really reassure everyone who is listening and might, resonate with this or might be going through this. I really want you to know that it is 100% possible to heal fully and to get yourself back, right?
Mhm.
Um, what it's important to do is, there are different ways that work for different people, but ultimately, it's the decision to choose yourself, right? So if you start with the decision of choosing yourself and saying, you know what, today I'm going to start with 10 minutes a day, but for 10 minutes a day, I'm going to choose myself over everybody else.
Hmm.
And whatever you decide to do with those 10 minutes, it's a start. It's a start to choose yourself. And then you build up on that, which it can mean that maybe in a little while you want to work with someone to help you, or maybe in a little while you're not ready to work with someone, but you might be ready to distance yourself from certain people in your life. But it's really important that you make the decision, the internal decision, to choose yourself. It's really, really important to start there.
Have you written any books on this,
I
Gloria?
have not. No,
Okay.
it is in my soul. I know it's in
Okay.
my soul.
Okay.
It has not manifested in the physical world yet, but it's
All
in there.
right.
Sure.
I got you. I got you. Um, I am. I know that there are many who listen to podcasts who are going through something within their marriage, whatever the abuse might be, abuse of liberty, spouse, uh, you know. So to be able to share with them is an interesting thing to do for me. So let me ask you this. I am a retired pastor of almost 32 years from a traditional missionary Baptist church here, just retired. And I wanted to keep my ministry going. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was to do a podcast that would uh, kind of encourage, inspire, and hopefully transform some lives. And so I've asked guests to kind of share their experience of the events in a way that our listeners can benefit. And so, what is it that you would say to listeners of this podcast who may be going through the same thing that you went through for 14 years? How would you talk to them? What would you say to them? And maybe you've already said a lot of it, but just in
Mhm.
as brief as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing, when you are in a toxic relationship with somebody with narcissistic traits, or with an abusive person, it's very likely that they are making you think that a lot of stuff is your fault,
Hmm.
because it's the nature of this kind of relationship, right? It's the nature of the whole manipulation that is the base of it. And so if there is one thing that I can 100% tell you with certainty right now, for you who are listening, is that it is not your fault. None of this
Uh-huh.
is your fault. Anything that you are being made to feel that it's your fault, it's not.
Uh,
And so please know this. Please, if this message has reached you somehow today because you needed to hear it, please know that whatever it is that you're feeling guilty or you're feeling ashamed for, you're feeling guilty about or ashamed for, it is not your fault. And the situation that you're currently in, it's not about you. It's not because of you. It's because of somebody else's traits and personality and projections that you have been caught up in this. So it is not your fault. But what I am also telling you with 100% certainty is that it is your responsibility to get out. Right? So it's not your fault that you're there, but it is your responsibility to get yourself out of it. And I know that it is scary, and I know that it feels uncomfortable, and there's loads of different things to consider, because obviously each and every person is different and has their own very specific story. But it is important that you know that no, it is not your fault, but yes, take action, because the responsibility is yours. Otherwise, the risk is too big. It's too big a risk being there for the rest of your life.
Gloria, tell me, how have these experiences and events in your life, living with someone who is manipulative, how has it changed you as you've dealt with your daily challenges?
I realized that I had lost myself. This is the way that it affected me. I know it's almost like I have a block, a chunk of years where I don't know who I am. I don't remember, it's almost there's like this internal disconnection that has happened. So I remember myself as a child, and I remember feeling what it feels to feel me, right? What is the sensation of being myself when I was a child, when I was younger. And then between the age of about 16 and 30, it's almost like there's a complete disconnection from the self, and I do not know who I was. So the manipulation that happens in these toxic relationships is so deep that it deprives you of your sense of self. And until you are there in that space, it's not going to change. And so it's really important that you take yourself out. And then once you take yourself out and you start a healing process, then you will be reconnected to the you that you remember. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. I hear you very well. I hear you very, very well. Listeners, don't go in a place, because Gloria is going to come back and still share some more of this awesome story. Very powerful story, and I'm just thankful that she was shared with us today. But Gloria, let me ask you this question: how can listeners of this podcast learn more about you? Is there a website, or is there any way they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go on gloriabettini.com, which is my website, and you will find a lot of things. This is not the only thing that I specialize in. It's definitely one of my passions, because obviously that's where it all started. But I do bring in a lot of spirituality in my work as well. And I do help with a lot of mind things as well, managing the things of the mind too, right? So you will find a lot of information there. So the website is definitely a good place to start. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Tell listeners what to look out for. What are some of the red flags of this type of individual?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to name a few, but one thing that I realized was really prominent for me in my own experience, which I then realized that it was not normal. It was the joking, the insult disguised as a joke, like insulting and saying something mean and saying something hurtful. And then when they realize that it, it made some sort of impact, oh, no, I was just joking, right? So never taking responsibility,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
disguising insults as jokes, and then the never taking responsibility. So it's always about, if you are in an intimate relationship with this person, and maybe you live together, maybe you're married, and it's about making the team work, right? The marriage, the couple team work. And there are some things that need to be discussed, and you come together as two people and say, look, I think that this thing that is happening, I don't necessarily agree with. You should be able to have a normal dialogue. If it turns into an argument where somebody else is trying to convince you of something, again, that's manipulation. It should be a very calm and discussion. It shouldn't be a way of trying to convince you that your bit is wrong and mine is right. This isn't how it works. And also is another red flag is the lack of responsibility, the lack of taking any sort of responsibility. Also, there is a very specific dynamic that happens when you are in a relationship with someone with narcissistic traits, and it's the taking you through a very specific cycle. And if you notice that, if you had a relationship long enough, you can notice this. So it starts with a phase that is called love bombing, which is basically is everything is over the top, right? It's like literally love bomb, right? You are put on a pedestal. You're the only thing that matters. You are showered with gifts and big words and proposals and all that kind of stuff in a very short amount of time at the very beginning. And then what happens is that this is a sort of conditioning that happens, right? This is the conditioning of making you feel like you are this important person so that you open up and share your vulnerabilities. After that follows a period of devaluation. So this is where the nasty joke starts. So you're no longer on a pedestal, but you're a little bit of a burden. You're like, well, yeah, no, I can't be bothered with you today, or things like this. After this, there is a third part, which is the complete discard. So it's where you don't count anymore. There is no, they either leave you or blackmail to leave you, threaten to leave you and that kind of stuff. But then the really, really important thing is that the cycle starts again. So it's constantly going through love bombing, devaluation, discarding, and then love bombing again. So it's almost like, which is why a lot of people who are in these kind of relationships, they don't leave, because they say, oh, but it's going to pass. This hard time is going to pass and he's going to be nice again, which is not what it is. They're not going to just be nice again. It's just another cycle that is starting, right? So it's like love bombing and then devaluation and discard, and then I love bomb you again, and then I start that cycle again, and over and over and over.
I love that phrase, love bombing. That's that's an interesting phrase, but I love that. Let me ask you this: if for someone who realized, and you obviously realize it, but there will be listeners of this podcast who, as a result of listening to what you've said, they realize that they are in this kind of relationship. What is it that they can do?
It really depends on each specific situation. So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. So if you feel safe, leave.
Okay.
Because the only way to have a relationship with these people is to not have one and have them in your life, right? So if it feels safe for you to do so, leave the relationship and leave it as soon as possible, and go far away from them and never get in contact again. If things are not that simple, and maybe there are kids involved, or maybe you don't feel safe, maybe you do want to live but you don't feel safe yet. So I suggest adopting a different approach, which is to prepare yourself to leave. So plan, you decide that you're going to leave in 6 months or in a year, or however long it is that you decide. But in this time, prepare yourself, meaning find yourself a place to go. Start working with someone that can help you on an emotional level, maybe psychological level, to just come back to you a little bit more until you have enough confidence and enough trust in yourself that you can do it and leave the relationship. So, decide that you're going to leave, but in a little while. And in the meantime, use this period to prepare yourself as much as you can. And one piece of advice that I would definitely give to anyone who's realized this, make sure that whoever you decide to share this with is not involved with them, because it is their manipulation goes to such extent that they condition and manipulate a lot of people around them. And so if for any reason you share somebody with a friend that then is going to go and check in with them, they will be manipulated into thinking that you are the one who is wrong. And so it's really important that whoever you decide to share this information with is not going to share it with them. So it has to be somebody that is on your side, or even better, a professional. Because in that case, the professional doesn't have any sort of relationship with the other person, and it can be your clarity, your point where it's, where you're grounded. It can help you see the light every day that you're doing this. So it's really, really important.
And there you have it, my friends. Gloria Bettini sharing her story, and this morning, who lets us know that happiness comes from growth. Use fear as your fuel. Don't let it stop you from moving forward. What a powerful story today we have heard from Gloria. Gloria, thank you again for sharing your story with listeners today.
Thank you so much, James. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to have a little space in your podcast to share this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.